So, a few weeks ago, I made a video about the best possible type combination in all of Pokemon, and people really seemed to love it. I got a lot of positive feedback and read a lot of really interesting discussion about the subject. I thought to myself, people seem to really like this. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video on the absolute worst type combination in Pokemon. But then, something unexpected happened. The day? Thursday, October 21st. The culprit? Pokemon's social media account. I'd woken up early to stream a TFT tournament I was participating in, when all of a sudden I was flooded by comments in my chat about a video Pokemon had just shared. I logged onto Twitter to see what the fuss was all about, and saw something that shook me to my core. This fluffy monstrosity had been revealed. Hisuian Zoroark. Now, I don't have particularly strong feelings about Zoroark one way or the other normally, but this was different. In my best possible type combination video, I gave the number 2 spot to a type that at the time didn't exist, Ghost and Normal. This Zoroark, revealed less than a week after I posted my video, was revealed to be the first ever Ghost and Normal type Pokemon. And that's when it hit me. I had been given a gift. The gift to call into existence new, never-before-seen type combinations from Pokemon themselves. And I also realized that with great power comes great responsibility. Why should I call forward only the strongest type combinations? Is it not true that strength is relative and can therefore only be measured by what's around it? Do I not have an obligation to bring forward weak types in addition to strong? What before seemed to me to be a fun video idea to follow up something people had enjoyed has become my duty, my calling, and my burden to bear. So, without further ado, let's talk about the absolute worst possible type combinations in all of Pokemon. As before, we need to start by getting some assumptions out of the way in order to make this a fair comparison. First, we have to consider what is weakest both offensively and defensively. A Pokemon with terrible defensive typing but good offensive typing won't be ranked as highly, or lowly. We also won't assume anything about the coverage of the Pokemon themselves, aside from assuming they have usable stab moves of whatever type they are. We won't be considering the surrounding metagame, as we're talking purely in theoretical terms here. I got a lot of comments about this last time, so just to be clear, when I say we won't consider the metagame, what I mean is we won't say stuff like grass types are strong in the current metagame, or Rillaboom is strong in the current metagame. However, we will consider that not all types are created equally, and some types are just stronger than others. Nearly every Pokemon would prefer to be weak to Bug as opposed to Fairy. With that in mind, the specific types that a Pokemon is weak to will play into our analysis, and we'll be ranking Pokemon higher who have more weaknesses to stronger types. If you want to know which types I consider to be strong or weak, check out my typing tier list video. I'll also be giving bonus points to Pokemon with 4 times weaknesses, as most of the time, a Pokemon with a 4 times weakness will be knocked out in one hit from a move of that type. Lastly, we won't make any assumptions about the stats or move pools of the Pokemon in question here. There's a lot more to a Pokemon than just its typing, and this question wouldn't be possible to answer if we muddied the water with move coverage and base stats. The same logic applies to abilities. How good or bad a Pokemon is can be impacted by what ability they have, so for this thought experiment we won't be considering them. In my video detailing what I thought the strongest type combination was, I began by looking at the strongest individual types. For this video, I wanted to do something similar. The easiest starting point was Bug. Bug is, in my opinion, objectively the worst type in the game, and the type I ranked lowest in my typing tier list. It only hits Psychic, Grass, and Dark for super effective damage, and is resisted by Fire, Fighting, Poison, Flying, Ghost, Steel, and Fairy, a selection of many of the best types in the game. However, this video isn't about the worst individual type, it's about the worst type combination, so I had to look beyond Bug. In my typing tier list video, the other 2 types that rounded out the bottom 3 were Ice and Poison. In the time since I made that video, however, I've come to appreciate the Poison type a lot more. Although it's certainly not the best type in the game, it has only 2 weaknesses and 5 resistances, and although offensively it leaves a lot to be desired, the ability to be one of only 2 types to hit Fairy Pokemon for super effective damage is important. Ice, however, is another story. Ice-type Pokemon are typically some of the worst performing. This is in part because Ice-type Pokemon have 4 weaknesses with only a resistance to Ice. To make matters worse, the specific types Ice is weak to in Fire, Steel, Fighting, and Rock are some of the better types in the game. Offensively, Ice fares a lot better, being able to hit Flying, Ground, Grass, and Dragon for super effective damage, with 4 resisted types to Fire, Steel, Water, and Ice. Offensively, I have no gripes with Ice. It feels like a solid mid-tier to upper mid-tier type offensively. The issue, and what really holds the Ice type back, is the abysmal defensive typing. So I knew that Ice and Bug types were going to be my main places to start. There's one more type I wanted to call out though, and that's Normal. Normal is a really weird type. It doesn't hit any Pokemon for super effective, it has only one weakness, no resistances, and one immunity. Normal I actually like as a type, as in the right context, such as when paired with Ghost or Psychic, it can be a strong dual type. However, Normal is the type that changes the original type the least. That means that if the base type is weak, Normal isn't going to add much. I had an idea of where I wanted to start, and I began looking through type combinations I thought would be especially bad. Some of the ones I found to be terrible surprised me, and I'm excited to share them with you all. Before we jump into my top 10 list, I'd like to ask you to consider subscribing if you haven't already. Only about 2% of my viewers are subscribed, and my goal is to grow this channel to 1 million subscribers. We're actually getting closer to 500,000, which is exciting. Anyway, whether you've subscribed or not, please enjoy the top 10 worst type combinations in all of Pokemon. Number 10 is going to be a surprise for most people, Dark and Rock. This type combination probably feels out of place because Tyranitar is such a good Pokemon, but the fact of the matter is that Tyranitar has a lot going for it that helps cover some of the typing's natural weaknesses. Dark and Rock have not only a 4x weakness to fighting, it also has 6 additional weaknesses to Ground, Bug, Steel, Water, Grass, and Fairy. You do gain 6 resistances and an immunity in exchange, though I would personally argue that the types this combination is weak to are more impactful than the ones it resists. Offensively, Dark and Rock are relatively decent. The only shared resistance to them is in the fighting type, though obviously there are dual types that can resist both stabs as well. If you're wondering why Tyranitar is so good despite its lackluster typing, consider that Tyranitar has monstrous BST and the ability Sandstream, which gives it a huge special defense buff, in addition to great coverage and setup moves. Overall, this type combination is definitely not the worst one in the game, but it does leave a lot to be desired. Number 9 holds our first type that doesn't currently exist, Bug and Normal. This one should be pretty self-explanatory. Bug is the worst type, and Normal doesn't really add too much to mitigate that. Both Bug and Normal are resisted by Ghost and Steel offensively, and Bug only hits Grass, Psychic, and Dark for super effective damage. Defensively, you gain a resistance to Ground and Grass and an immunity to Ghost in exchange for weaknesses to Flying, Rock, and Fire. I think of the Bug type combinations, this one is definitely not the worst. You keep your resistance to Ground, you get an immunity to Ghost, and you only have 3 weaknesses. That being said, this type combination doesn't do anything especially well, which is why it's on this list. Number 8 is a type combo that is near and dear to my heart, Grass and Psychic. Executor's typing isn't doing it any favors. You have a whopping 7 total weaknesses, including a 4x weakness to Bug. You do gain 6 total resistances to Fighting, Ground, Water, Grass, Electric, and Psychic, many of which are useful types to resist, but similar to Tyranitar, a Pokemon with loads of weaknesses and loads of resistances will more often than not still find itself under threat most of the time. Offensively, the Psychic type doesn't add that much to the Grass type. You can hit Ground, Rock, and Water types for super effective damage with Grass, and adding Psychic only adds Fighting and Poison to the mix. Importantly, neither Grass nor Psychic can do even neutral damage to the Steel type, which is the single best defensive type in the game. This combination is certainly one of the worst in the game, but it's because it has major deficits in addition to a few strong points. For that reason, I ranked it as a better type than something that couldn't do anything well. Number 7 is something of a combination of everything we've talked about so far, Ice and Normal. If you've been paying attention, this probably makes sense. We talked about how Ice was one of the absolute worst individual types, and how Normal can't help a type that is already struggling. Ice and Normal really struggle defensively. You turn the 2x weakness to Fighting into a 4x weakness, and in exchange you only gain an immunity to Ghost. You also retain your weaknesses to Fire, Steel, and Rock. Offensively, you don't gain much either. You still hit Flying, Ground, Grass, and Dragon Pokemon for super effective damage, and although Normal allows you to damage Fire, Water, and Ice Pokemon for neutral, neither of these types can hit Steel types for neutral damage, which is a major issue. Overall, I hope they never make a Pokemon this type, because it would likely just be very sad. Coming in at number 6 is Bug and Flying. While Flying is actually one of the stronger types in the game, Bug is so abysmal that it manages to drag it all the way down onto my list. Defensively, this type is weak to Fire, Flying, Electric, and Ice, and has a 4x weakness to Rock. It also only has a few resistances to Bug, Fighting, Grass, and Ground. Offensively, this type is rather weak as well. You can hit Fighting, Bug, Psychic, Dark, and Grass for super effective, but most of those types are mid-tier or lower and not the ones you hope to prioritize when hitting for super effective damage. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record, neither bug nor flying can hit steel for neutral damage, which, as I mentioned, is a big deal. This type combination is really bad, but I didn't put it higher on my list because there are other type combinations that are worse, and flying is a good enough standalone type that I thought it warranted a middling placement on my list. We've made it to the top 5. This is where things get really bad, so buckle in. Our 5th place slot is reserved for another type combination I like, grass and ice. Abomasnow's signature typing is unfortunately pretty lackluster in the grand scheme of things. This combination is weak to fighting, flying, poison, steel, bug, rock, and has a 4 times weakness to fire. It does have some decent resistances to grass, ground, electric, and water, all of which are good types to resist. Offensively, I would say this pair has decent synergy. Ice is able to hit the grass, bug, poison, and dragon types that resist grass, and grass is able to hit the water and ice types that resist ice. That's where the magic stops, however. If we look at the shared resistances, we can see that not only is our old friend Steel back once again, resisting both grass and ice, but they brought a friend in Fire, who also resists both. If you're going to combine types, you really want them to complement each other and work together well, and I just can't say grass and ice do that. Thankfully for fans of Abomasnow, other type pairings are worse. Which, speaking of that, brings us to number 4. 2 back-to-back placements for grass unfortunately, but I just can't say many good things about grass and bug. This type combination is incredibly redundant. One of the only good things about the bug type is the fact that it resists ground, which is also resisted by grass. Additionally, another one of bug's measly 3 resistances is also rendered redundant here, as grass resists grass. This means the only unique resistance bug is able to bring to the table here is fighting. And things are just downhill from here. If we look at the weaknesses, we can see not 1 but 2 4 times weaknesses present to fire and flying, in addition to weaknesses to poison, rock, bug, and ice. This on its own would be enough to warrant this combo a position on my list, but we somehow aren't even done yet. If we look at this type's offensive pairing, we can see that things don't improve. This combo can hit 6 types for super effective damage, in ground, rock, water, psychic, dark, and grass, but when we look at the shared resistances, things look abysmal. Previously on our list, the most shared resistances we had was 2, with grass and ice both struggling to hit fire and steel. Here we have not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 shared resistances to flying, poison, fire, and steel. This is frankly just embarrassing and really puts the nail in the coffin. In other words, this pair is really awful. Somehow it still gets worse though. Our number 3 slot is reserved for a combination that has always upset me, dark and psychic. While this might seem like an odd pairing, especially following a type that really seemed abysmal, there's one thing about this pair in particular that makes it borderline unusable. This combination of types does not grant a single resistance, not a 1. The only defensive trait these types offer is a single immunity to psychic. What this means in practice is that this combination has absolutely 0 strengths defensively. Because it doesn't resist anything, it's nearly impossible to switch in safely or position properly, as it can never be brought in on a favorable type matchup. It also means your opponent can deal with it with any strong Pokemon regardless of their type. To make matters worse, this combination is not only weak to Fairy, but also has a 4 times weakness to Bug. Offensively, this type combination doesn't do much either. Although it can hit Psychic, Fighting, Ghost, and Poison for super effective damage, neither type can touch opposing Dark types. While the other facets of this pairing are bad, the single thing that earned it this high placement on my list was how difficult it is to use a Pokemon that has no resistances. This is a lesson that it's better to do some things well and some things poorly than to do nothing at all. We've made it all the way to our number 2 spot. This one didn't exist until Generation 6, and frankly, it may as well not have existed after either because it really sucks. Ice and Rock. Aurorus's signature typing is really bad. Not 1 but 2 4 times weaknesses to Fighting and Steel, weaknesses to Ground, Water, Grass, and Rock, and the resistances being to Normal, Flying, Poison, and Ice means it only resists 1 type that is commonly considered good. Offensively, the typing is a bit better, as you do hit 7 types were super effective in Flying, Ground, Bug, Fire, Grass, Ice, and Dragon, but we see once again our good friend Steel resisting both Rock and Ice. When we lay everything out like this all at once, it may not be apparent why this combo scored so poorly. But what I want to emphasize is having not only 2 4 times weaknesses to relevant types, but also having additional common weaknesses and almost no relevant resistances makes this combination extremely difficult to use well. I think if a Pokemon were to be good with this typing, it would need to be extremely fast and strong, and ideally make use of the item Focus Sash, to allow it to lean more into its offensive typing and ignore its poor defensive typing a bit. That's not what this video is about though, so we're just about ready for our number 1. Pause the video and let me know in the comments down below what you think the worst type combination in all of Pokemon is. Ready? Alright, well, coming in at number 1 is the absolutely abysmal Bug and Ice. I guess this isn't super surprising as I talked about how these two were the worst individual types, but wow are they bad together too. 2 4x weaknesses to Fire and Rock, 2 weaknesses to Steel and Flying, and only 3 resistances in Grass, Ground, and Ice. It's so difficult to use Pokemon with 4x weakness as well, and having 2 to common types means any Pokemon with this type combination has to fight such an uphill battle. Offensively, this combination is barely better than just a pure Ice type. You still get the Ground, Grass, Dragon, and Flying coverage, but Bug only adds on Dark and Psychic. And once again, this type combination has 2 shared resistances in both Steel and Fire, making it difficult to use not only defensively, but offensively as well. I think it's kind of telling that the only Pokemon with this typing, Frostmoth, has an absolutely broken ability in Ice Scales, and it's still totally unusable because the typing is so bad. This combination doesn't really do anything well, and does multiple things especially poorly. For that reason, it has earned the number 1 spot on my list, and is the unofficial worst type combination in all of Pokemon. This video got me thinking about how some types are just strictly worse than others, which gave me the idea to work next on a video about how to fix the Bug type to make it actually viable. I'm not sure if that's something my audience is interested in though, so if it sounds cool to you, let me know in the comments. If I dissed your favorite Pokemon's type here, I do apologize. I think if anything, this should be a reminder that a Pokemon is more than just its type, and even Pokemon with bad typing can be good under the right circumstances. That being said, you'd always rather have your Pokemon's typing help you rather than hinder you. If you disagree with anything on my list, let me know in the comments down below. It's been fun making these videos, and I'm glad people seem to be enjoying them. That's all from me, see you next time. It's me.
World Chip difference, baby.